All right, this is Last Days Zombie Apocalypse by Osprey Games, written by Ash Barker. It's a game of survival horror. So this is like a modern, post-apocalyptic game of zombies. And it's hardbound, about 109 pages. And here's the description on the back. And so you're going to put a war band together, or a group, or a posse, or however you want to say it, of miniatures together, and you're going to make a group out of that, and you're going to go on missions. And there's also a campaign setting, and not only you have to worry about your opponent, but you have to worry about the zombies. So, let's take a look inside this book. Okay, this is the table of contents. You're going to have your foreword. You're going to have about the game, how do you do tests, how do you do combat, the stats used in the game, preparing to play. So what do you need to play this game, how you set up the game, how you actually play the game, and the phases used in the game, which continues over here. And then this is the zombies, special rules, like skills and attribute rules, weapons and what they do. If you want to run a campaign, here's the campaign rules, and then here's some scenarios or encounters used in the game, and then how you create your own apocalypse. This section of the book, called Last Days Zombie Apocalypse, it basically goes over how do you do tests, how do you measure, what can your miniatures see, what are action points, and what are the characteristics. Now, when you do a test, you're going to get a 1d6, and you're going to add a characteristic to that. Now, what are the characteristics? The characteristics are going to be, you have action points, and that's a little different than the regular characteristics. And I'll get back to action points in just a minute. You have your close quarter combat, and each of these will have a number between 0 and 6. Action points can go above 6. By close quarter combat, your character will have a number between 0 and 6, and this is what you're going to add to that d6. The higher the number, the better. So somebody at 6 is really, really good at close quarter combat. Somebody at 0 is pretty inept. Okay, so you're going to have close quarter combat, firearms, so shooting guns, your strength, endurance, your damage capacity, your courage, or how you can resist horror, and your intelligence. So those are going to be the characteristics used in the game. Now, action points are used. You're going to have so many of those, and if you want to move, they're basically more for movement. So if you want to move an inch, it costs an action point. If you're in some type of terrain that's a little more difficult to move an inch, you're going to have to spend 2 action points. To reload your gun, it's going to take so many action points. Now, if you want to do a test, you roll a d6 and add that characteristic. So if I'm trying to break open a door, maybe I'll do like a strength test or something like that, let's say. So I'm just trying to just pull that door open or something. Roll a d6, add my strength, and there's a target number. If I reach that target number or higher, I did it. If I go under that, I fail. Now, there's also tests where you roll off against another opponent. And what's going to happen there is both of you will roll your d6, add your appropriate characteristic, and then whoever gets the highest wins. Now, if there's a tie, the one with the higher characteristic will win. And if there's a tie there, then the defender wins. Now, I really do like this, that it's not defender always wins. This one's a little different in that the person with the character with the higher characteristic is going to win. So if these two people are tug of war, let's say, and they're going to use strength against each other, and one has a strength of 1 and the other has a strength of 4, and they roll and they both get a total of 8, the one that has the strength of 4 is going to win. So I really do like that in this game. So that's kind of a neat deal, because most times it's been like defender wins. All right, preparing to play. So what do you need to play this game? As you can see from the list here, you're going to need models, miniatures, to represent people in your group, some zombies, dice, d6s. That's all you need for this game is d6s. Some type of measuring device, tape measure, something like that, in inches. Character cards, so if you decide who's in your group, and I'll go through some of those. you need a card for those, because sometimes you're going to flip them over to kind of mark who's done something, and sometimes you're going to need to mark on them if they take damage, stuff like that. A 3x3 gaming surface, and then terrain. So that's what you're going to need to play the game. So one of the first things you're going to do is choose a leader. And whatever miniature you want to have your leader, that's going to be your leader. And you can see from this example here, this is the name of the character is the professional. His trait is he's trained. Then you can see how many points he's going to cost, 18. And they got scavenge points. So what you have is you have 100 scavenge points to spend on your group. And that's for your leader, the men in the group, or women, who's ever in your group, and their equipment. So you only have this 100 points to spend. So this guy's going to cost 18 points out of the 100. And it got kind of a backstory about what this character is. And then here's the stats again. So if we go over what the stats are, this AP is action points. So this character has 6 action points. So it can move like 6 inches or move 4 and do a reload or something like that. A close combat, firearms, the strength of the character, endurance, damage capacity, courage, and so forth, and then its intelligence. Remember, the higher the better. So 6 is high, 0 is low. So this character's kind of in the middle. Special rules, this is his leader. This is the skills he has, and then group preference, what this character would like to have in a group. Next thing you do is you're going to pick a refuge, like in headquarters. So this is probably more for like a campaign setting. So you have 6 to choose from, and they'll have like how many people can be in a group, or not in a group, how many people can stay in that. And then what do you get if you have this? So like if you have the gun shop, you're going to get armory, fortified windows, and reinforced doors. Now, if you want to put your, now you're ready to, not if you want to, now you're ready to put your, what they call a group together. The rules basically are, you can recruit any number of characters with the same keyword as your leader. So this leader had trained. So he can recruit anybody that has the keyword trained. Up to 50% of the characters in your group may have a neutral keyword, no more than that. And then finally, only 25% of the models or less may have a different keyword than your leader. So it's going to be very important if you're looking for certain characters and like you want a whole bunch of those certain characters and they have a, let's say they've got a keyword of selfish, then you may want a selfish leader because you can only have 25% of your models being of that keyword. So what are some of the characters we can get? So looking here, we have a rescue worker, which is selfless, and he's 9 scavenge points. You see the stats there, and then the special abilities and rules they've got. A Sarge, how many points this one cost, and then finally a soldier. None of these come with equipment unless stated otherwise, so you're still going to need those 100 points for equipment. So just don't spend 100 points on characters and then nothing for equipment. So looking at starting equipment, here's some of the starting equipment you can have and how much it costs. Okay, so you've got your group together, you've got a game you want to play and your opponent's ready. Now you're ready to set up the table. So how do you do that? Basically, it's a 3x3 area and put terrain on it. And if there's any questions about different pieces of terrain, is this climbable, is this difficult, talk to your opponent before the game and they talk about that. Then you're going to deploy, and basically they do have a general deployment in the game, but also the scenario may tell you differently how you're going to deploy. But one of the most important things to remember is there's going to be these supply tokens, and there's going to be at least 5 of them, and they're going to be 1 inch in diameter, and this is how your characters possibly survive if you're playing like a campaign or something like that. They could be representative of medicine, canned food, maybe their ammunition, clothes that your characters can use. So your character's going out and scavenging, and these are the things they're scavenging for. One has to be put right in the middle of the table. The rest are split evenly between the 2 players. And the only rule is don't put them within 6 inches of a table edge or 6 inches of a deployment zone or within 6 inches of another supply token. And one character can carry 1 supply token. They can't carry 2. and they can hand it off to other characters. So this is some of the stuff you're trying to do in the game is get these supply tokens to help your group survive. Okay, you're ready to play the game. The game is broken up into 5 phases, and you go through these phases in order. The first one is the menace phase, then the action phase, then the shooting phase, close quarter combat phase, and the end phase. All right, this is the menace phase, and it actually has 3 sub-phases in it. That is noise tokens, ammo tokens, and zombie activation. And you're going to do these in order. So every time a character shoots a gun, you're going to put a noise token on that character. And if it has a higher rate of fire than 1, you're going to put, if it says 2 rate of fire, you're going to put 2 ammo or 2 noise tokens down each time it shoots. And during this phase, when a character has one of those noise tokens, 1 or more, you're going to roll a d6 and add the number of noise tokens that character has. If it comes out 7 or more, you're going to add a zombie to the table edge closest to that character. Now, there's a problem. If your character already has 6 ammo tokens on it, you're going to automatically get the 7 you need. So you're going to automatically put a zombie down, again, just like you would for regular. Subtract 6 from the total, and then you're going to roll again. So if the character only had 6, there's no way to get a 7. But let's say the character had 8 noise tokens on it. So you're going to automatically, because it's 6 or more, you're going to automatically put that zombie down to the table edge. And then you're going to subtract 6 from the 8, and you get 2 left over. You're going to have to roll a die and add that 2 to see if an additional zombie appears. All right, ammo tokens, what are they? Basically, every time your character shoots, you're going to put an ammo token down, or for each rate of fire it uses, you're going to put an ammo token down. And during this phase, you're going to roll a d6, just like kind of like what you did with zombies. You're going to roll a d6 and add the number of ammo tokens on that character for that weapon. Now, if it's shooting 2 different types of weapons, you need to keep those ammo tokens separate for each of those weapons because they're going to roll separately. If you roll greater than or equal to the reload number of the weapon, you're going to have to take time to reload your weapon during movement or whatever when you can spend those action points. And it costs action points to reload, so that means your character is not going to be moving as far. So if a horde of zombies are coming on you and all of a sudden you are out of ammo and needing to reload, that could be a very tricky situation. All right, the zombies are on the table. What do you do with them? And that is during this subphase of zombie activation. And basically, the players are going to roll off, and whoever wins gets to activate a zombie, and basically that zombie is going to get to move. They have 5 action points, so that generally means they can move 5 inches. Terrain may slow them down, just like the characters could also be slowed down by terrain. Another thing that can slow them down is if they have knockback counters on them. So if you shoot them or something like that and don't shoot them in the head, they get a knockback counter equal to the firearm's knockback characteristic. And for each knockback token on there, or knockback counter, subtracts from that 5 action points. So if the zombie has 5 action points but has 2 knockback counters on it, you subtract that from the 5 minus 2, it has 3 action points left, so it can move basically 3 inches. And the players are going to alternate moving zombies on the table during this subphase. All right, we are ready for the action phase. And basically, the players are going to roll off. So they're going to take a d6 and roll that, and then they're going to add the courage and intelligence of their leader. If they've lost their leader, there's going to be a new character is going to be nominated from their group as the leader, and they're going to add those stats. Whoever gets the highest gets to decide whether they want to be aggressor or defender. Now, aggressor is, I want to get into melee. Defender is, I want to shoot more. So if you decide to be aggressor, you're going to get to move one of your models first, then the opponent's going to get to move, and then you move, and you keep alternating back and forth. If you win initiative and decide to be defender, your opponent gets to move first. However, whoever is the defender gets to shoot first in the shooting phase. So you got a choice there. Do you want to get in melee? So you're going to move first so you get your guys in contact with other things. Or do you plan to shoot more and you want to get that first shot off? So then you're going to go defender. Okay, we're in the shooting phase. So whoever was the defender gets to shoot first, and they'll choose one of their characters to shoot. Now, how do you do that? First of all, the model has to have line of sight to the target they're shooting at. They cannot be in melee, so that's where the aggressor go, ooh, I don't want this guy to shoot. Boom, I made it into contact with this character. That character's not going to be able to shoot. And also, weapons have a range. So you can see here, hunting rifle has a range of 24 inches. So the target has to be within 24 inches. So if you got line of sight, you're not base-to-base contact, and it's within range of the weapon, you can shoot. It's another roll a d6, add the character's firearm skill, and you're trying to get 7 or higher, but there are modifiers, as you can see here. Then the character, if you hit the target, they're going to take some damage. Now, is it just going to be kind of a wound, or are you going to have where you possibly incapacitate them and take them out of the game? So you're going to roll a d6 and add the firearm's damage. As you can see here on hunting rifle, it's 3, so you're going to roll a d6 and add 3. And this is where the math gets a little tricky. You're going to take the endurance of the target and divide that into the damage done. And then you're going to round down if there's a remainder. So let's say you rolled 8 total. So you got 5 plus a 3. So you got 8 damage you did. The target has 3 as their endurance. So you're going to divide that. That goes 2 times into it with a remainder. Well, we don't worry about remainder. So you did 2 wounds to it. You look at the character's damage capacity. If it's not 0, they're still in the game. If it ever gets down to 0 or less, they're removed. And so if the damage capacity of this character was 4 and they just took 3 damage, they have 1 damage capacity left. So they basically get hit 1 more time, and then they're probably going to be taken out of the game. The close quarters combat phase. It's very similar in how you do damage and all that to the range when you're doing range attack. So close quarter combat is you have to be base to base who you're going to attack. Then you're going to roll a d6, add your close quarter combat skill for that character, and some modifiers that may come into play. And the weapon may also have a modifier. You're going to roll a d6, those modifiers, and the opponent's going to do the same thing. And then you compare your totals. If you win, you hit the opponent and you can do damage. If you tie, whoever has the highest close quarter combat skill or stat is the one that won. And then if the defender wins, then you missed them and no damage is rolled. So how do you do damage? This is very, very similar to how ranged combat works. You're going to roll a d6, add your strength of your character that did the hitting, and then the weapon may add more strength to it or may subtract to it or do nothing. And so you can see here with the club, you're going to add +1 to the damage. Then you get your total, and then you're going to divide that total by the endurance of the target. And just like I explained in the ranged combat, that's going to tell you how many wounds you do or how much damage you do. And if the opponent ever gets down to a damage capacity of 0, it is taken out of the game. All right, the last phase is the end phase. And this is basically a morale check to see if you've taken too many casualties and all that, and your group's like, we're done, let's go back and regroup and everything. So that's what this phase is about, and see if possibly the game's over for that reason. All right, this is the zombie section, and this is going to talk about the zombies, what the characteristics are, and how they act during the game. And one of the things is, how do you move a zombie? So they're going to move first to what they can see. If they can't see anybody, they're going to go to the nearest, like the noise token situation. How zombies act in combat. They're going to get to attack after all the players are done doing their characters' attacks. Now, they do also have this thing called horror. And if they move into contact with a character, there's going to be a contest here. The zombie's going to use its horror stat. The character is going to use its courage stat. And they're going to each roll a d6. And if the zombie wins, that character cannot use any action points to disengage from the zombie. And so they could start piling in on you. Basically, one zombie's not too bad. Humans can normally kind of handle one zombie. But when it gets to be a horde of them, that's when that character is going to be in a lot of trouble. All right, special rules. And these go over the skills and attributes that are used in the game. So you can see here, if you're an agriculturalist or if you're an ambusher, what does that do for you? And crowd control, dirty fighter, and disarm. But there's also attributes that things could have, like if it's explosive, what does that mean? If it has fire, if it's highly specialized, noisy, and so forth. So those are also used in the game, and this section explains those. All right, this goes over basically what weapons are available, equipment, and then your hideout, or what's called a refuge, and what perks it gives you. You kind of can see here a list of some of the weapons and their stats of what class they are, the range, damage, and so forth, the knockback. That's going to slow those zombies down. There's also general equipment, and here's some of them you can see here, like assault armor, booze, climbing gear, and refuge perks. So if your refuge has an armory, what is that going to do for you? If it has bunk beds, what is that going to do for your refuge, or for your group having that type of refuge? And that is what this section explains. So let's say you just don't want to just play a game after game and just keep going. You want to actually do a campaign. That's what this section is about. And it goes through, if your characters were taken out of the game, they may not be dead. They may be injured, and there's a table for rolling that. What happens if your leader dies? Getting experience and how you level up characters in this game and give them more skills, and their characteristics maybe will go up. How are your supplies doing? Do you gain more supplies for your group, like food and such? How are people recuperating? Do you give certain jobs for characters, like, oh, I want them to build an escape vehicle. So it goes through how could you do that. And also there could be a zombie attack during this part of the game. And also it goes through rules of if you do lose your hideout, or what they call refuge, what can you do? Encounters. This is basically the scenarios used in the game. And there are 6 of them. And when you first play the game, they suggest using the scenario called scavengers. Bushwhack one is basically you're going out there and trying to rob supplies from the other player. Home defense is where one opponent's refuge, or HQ, is being attacked. Massacre side is the zombies actually have they're carrying the supply tokens, so you have to take the zombies out to get the supply tokens. Rescue is there's members of your group out there, and the opponent's group's out there too, members of theirs, and you're trying to rescue them. Scavengers is the one where there's those scavenger tokens put out there, and you're trying to collect them to get supplies. And then escape is you're trying to get a vehicle and get off the table because there's just too many zombies. So you're just trying to get that vehicle together, find that vehicle, get it going, and get out of there. All right, that was Last Days Zombie Apocalypse, a game of survival horror. Really kind of an interesting twist on the skirmish game. Now, like Osprey Games, you can use whatever miniatures you want. So that's not a big deal there. You don't have to buy certain minis. I'm normally not into zombie games, but this one kind of has me interested in a way. And that is, it's really easy to learn, so it's really easy to teach, and you don't have to go rule searching, it seems, so much in this game. It is a D6. It would have been kind of nice to have like a D10 or something, a little more, expansion of numbers you could get besides just D6, but D6 is pretty common die, so that makes it easier for people to get in the game. But there were a couple of things that really interested me about it, and I don't know why other games don't do this. And one of them was when you tie, whoever had the higher stat wins. A lot of games it's like defender wins or something like that. But I do like that whether you're attacker or defender, that won't dictate whether or not you win a tie, like in Melee. It's who has the higher stat. I do like that. Another one is the initiative system is pretty interesting in that when you win initiative, if you're wanting to go Melee, you're wanting to go first. If you're really wanting to shoot more, or be the first one to shoot, you want to be defender. And I like that option in this game. The equipment and the scenarios are kind of interesting in that the opponent's there for the most part. There's a few scenarios you're really going to go after each other. But some of the scenarios is the opponent's there and you might mess with each other, but the zombies are the big threat and you really have to watch out for them. So it's kind of a different twist on the game because a lot of games are I'm going to call them zombies in quotes. The zombies are not the big threat. They're kind of there. Your opponent's that's the big threat. In this one, it seems more the zombies are the big threat and your opponent is more of a hindrance to you. But they can be a problem also. So I kind of like that in the game too. So if any of this kind of interests you, you should definitely take a look at Last Days Zombie Apocalypse, a game of survival horror.